all, this is Val here with another Epic 7 video. And today, it happened a while ago. I know you guys have told me time and time again, be more prompt, be more prompt. Well, I had to get the gear. I didn't have the gear, but I got it, and we are finally ready to take a review on my girl, Fallen Cecilia. So as you know how I do here, I always start with skills, so let's hop right into it. Skill 1, we have Mistake. Yeah, Mistake. Okay. Acquire 1 soul. Attacks with a Spear of Revenge with a 100% chance, because I fully skilled her up, to provoke for 1 turn. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. You can see here we do pick up a nice 15% in effect chance, meaning at base it is a 85% chance to taunt. Fully skilled, you see 100. The next skill, her passive, Strong Instinct, grants a barrier for 2 turns to all allies at the start of battle, and grants a barrier for 2 turns to the ally with the lowest health at the end of the caster's turn. Barrier strength increases proportional to the caster's max health. And we've got a bunch of barrier strengths here. Lastly, her third skill, her ult, if you prefer, Spear of Resentment, that generates 2 souls and is on a 5-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies in an explosion of spiteful emotions. Grants all allies skill nullifier, negating damage received from the next skill attack. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. If you soul burn this bad boy for a whole 10 souls, skill cooldown is decreased by 2 turns. Now you can see that I have fully skilled it, so by default it is a 6-turn cooldown. At max skill, you get your 5 turns. If you skill burn it, it goes down to 3 turns. So that is her skills. Very good skills. Now skill 1 is just, it's clutch. There's a lot of ways, a lot of different gear sets you can go for it. Because basically on something like Elbrus, and we'll talk about more of this when we get to the gear section. So basically, if someone gets punched in the face, she can go ahead and attack that unit, get a taunt in, and prevent them from doing anything. Also, she can be a way for you to deal with crowds that you burst down low, but unfortunately you weren't able to finish it off. You can use skill 1 on them to taunt the crowd, thus preventing them from ulting, giving your DPS a chance to finish them off. Very useful skill. Very nice to have 100% taunt, especially when you take counterattack into consideration. Her second skill, Strong Instinct, how I use her, and we're going to talk about this when we look at stats and gear. It's not really needed. This is definitely a PvP defense-based ability. There is some uses in PvE, especially like, you know, say you're in Wyvern, your tank's getting low or something like that, and you need just that little bit of shield so they can live to next turn until your Tamarine or your Angelica gets a heal off. Then, I mean, it has its uses, but primarily PvP defense. It helps prevent cleave when combined with, of course, Sea Armin and Aureus. It just makes you that much more tanky, that less attractive to cleave. Very good ability. Now, Spear of Resentment. This is what I call a baller ability. This is a wet dream. Do you know why it's a wet dream? Skill Nullifier is an amazing buff. Do you know why it's amazing? You get attack buff, you get defense buff. You know what happens to those after the turns expire? It goes away. Skill Nullifier, like, hangs out. Who says, oh, you need me this turn? No problem. Let me stick around. Chill out. Hang loose, man. And when you need me, when you're in that clutch situation, guess what? I'll be there to stop all of that dang damage. That is what's beautiful about this. And she gives it to everyone. Everyone is fully protective, and you ain't scared of dying worth or taking damage worth nothing because you got Skill Nullifier. Now, granted, it doesn't stop like debuffs and things like that, but it does stop damage 120%. You don't actually gain health. I'm just saying it's effective at stopping damage. And it's not consumed after X amount of turns. It's consumed when used, and that is just really big. Being able to drop this down for 1 soul to 2-turn cooldown is just amazing, and I'll explain how I use that and why that's a big deal. Because you're looking at this, what Val, people just put her on defense. This is never going to be an issue. They don't skill burn on defense. Well, we take a look at stats. You'll find out why in my gear. I find this a very helpful ability. Her imprint, not that big a deal. resistance. I mean, resistance is good, but would I go butt poop crazy summoning her or feeding a bunch of Cecilia dupes? Summoning? No. She's an ML. I'm not a rich man. I'm just a poor boy trying to make it. So no, I wouldn't go crazy as summoning. However, if I had more than one Cecilia dupe, absolutely, I would feed it to her. Because resistance you can always find a use for. Especially on PvP defense, right? Okay, let's take a look at her stats. Here they are. And you may say, wow, 17k. What the heck is wrong with you? A 279 crit damage with 77% hit chance. What kind of crack are you actually smoking? I'm smoking, first of all, I only smoke the good kush. Thank you very much. But I'm actually not. I actually use her primarily on arena offense. She is on my defense team. But I built my Cecilia as a actual bruiser.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
That is right. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. I'm not on the devil's lettuce. I use her as a bruiser unit. Let's go back to the skills really quick. All of her abilities scale off of max HP. All of her abilities have damage increase, well, minus this one, minus her passive, have a damage increase, okay? And a significant damage increase. You get 10 and you get 35% here, and you get 35%, or excuse me, 30% here. 25, no, 30%, no. Let's do math real quick. 25, 15, 25, 30. I was right the first time, 30%. Right, that's a big increase, right? You run her on something like crit damage, she actually does decent damage. She is element neutral, so you don't have to worry about doing reduced damage to someone. You're always going to do just what I like to call, not necessarily true, but I say pure damage to a unit, right? You don't have to worry about elemental disadvantage. So that's why I did it. That's why I went this way, you know. Now, if I had done, you know, the standard thing, HP, 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 you know, on HP set or on defense set, yeah, she'd have way more HP, but then I really couldn't use her as the bruiser that I want her to be, right? So let's go through the stats. 1617 attack, you don't need it. Defense, how I use her, you really don't need it. HP, you need it. You do. You do. And we'll look at my gear and how I got to this number and why it's not as impressive as it could be. Speed. Now, I know I said offense, right? But the thing is, like, on my offense, I always have some type of combat readiness manipulator there, whoever it may be. So being this slow doesn't hurt her too bad. Plus, she's slightly tanky, and she could take a punch in the face. Not as well as she could, mind you, had I built her like everyone does. You just drop her on defense, never to be seen again. But to me, I wanted her to be content. As you saw from the intro, I mean, her hits are no laughing matter. She hurts. And with this here, with Elbrus sitting here and her counterattacks on skill 1, you're going to do significant damage when you counterattack them, plus you're going to taunt them. So that's just really big. That's a huge thing. Being able to lock the unit down while slowly whittling them away. And this can end up where you actually have the entire team taunted and decently damaged just because she's counterattacking. I mean, and that's a really useful thing to have. Now, crit chance, I'm 100% disappointed. And because it's not 100%. In my experience, and it has happened, it doesn't really, you don't see it in my intro, but there's a lot of times she doesn't crit. And she doesn't really do a lot of damage. We know how that is. You know, you got to crit. If you want to see it, you got to crit. To get an advantage of 279 crit damage, you've got to crit. I'm not happy with this. If you do decide to build this, please get 100% crit without going crit necklace. Okay, that's very key. It's part of what took this video so long, is trying to get gear that was at least acceptable. This is not acceptable for me for 2 reasons, HP and crit chance, but I'll show you where those mistakes are, how you can rectify them, and how to make a very well hard-hitting bruiser Cecilia. Crit damage obviously is key. You want crit damage on every piece. You want over 250% crit damage, period. If you're at 225, no, you're not ready. Go to 250. Once you're at 250, try to get to 300. Okay? Effectiveness, you could use it. I didn't focus on it. I know I like to talk about her skill 1, but even with this effectiveness, it hits pretty often. Effective resistance is nice, especially if you do want to put her on your arena defense team. Mine is on my defense team, and she works fairly well with that. Now, stats you really want to focus on hardcore at the expense of other things: health, crit chance, crit damage. Okay. Ideally, I would like to see this be 25k health. I would like to see this be 100% crit damage, and I would like to see this be 275. Or excuse me, I would like to see this be 100% crit chance and at least 275 crit damage if you want to be serious about it. But at minimum, 250 will get you in the door. We'll get you in the door. Everything else is gravy. If you get more, awesome. If you get less because you sacrifice for those 3 stats, awesome. It'll work either way. Ideal set build, crit damage all the way, and crit chance. Now, I say crit chance, but I'm going to say this in every video. Don't pigeonhole yourself into a secondary set. Like, for instance, you say you need crit, so you go with crit chance. It's very important you not do that for one reason, and let's talk about it, okay? Very briefly, I know I go over this every video, but there could be someone new who's watching, and I want them to have the information. If you look at a crit chance set right here, you get 12%. Let's say you have no crit chance stats on here other than the set itself, you get 12%. Let's say you're looking through your inventory, you come across a defense set. You got 2 pieces, one piece has 10%, another piece has 12% crit chance. Guess what? That's 22% crit chance. You replace that piece right here, okay? Assuming the other substats are where they should be, okay? That's the other piece of it. Assuming the other substats are where they should be, you go with that over this, because it doesn't make sense to only gain 12% crit chance when you can gain 22% per crit chance, but you don't go with it because this is a set bonus. Your set bonus doesn't outweigh what it is. Now, that's one way to look at it. I'm a big bonus person, so that's the one I like to preach first. But however, on your secondary, the truth of the story is, with your secondary, all you care about is stats. And the ultimate way to go, to only be concerned about reaching your stat goal, is to go broken. Don't pigeonhole yourself into any 2-piece set. Look at it, go, oh, here's this attack piece, crazy amounts of crit chance, crazy amounts of crit damage. Oh, and guess what? I have this health piece, crazy amount of crit chance, crazy amount of crit damage, awesome speed. Doesn't make sense to go with either the crit chance set or the defense set, because you have 2 pieces that the set bonus of those other 2, regardless of which one you use, can't compare to the individual stats of those alone. So never pigeonhole yourself into, I have to use this specific set. Always look at your secondary set purely from, does it get me to my stat goal? That's it. Nothing else matters. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at gear. Now, if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video to take a look. Okay, now let's talk about some of the core mistakes I made that contributed to health, and hopefully it'll help you avoid them. Now, ideally on your gear, you're looking for 4 specific stats: crit chance, crit damage, health, and speed. Speed is always good to have, okay? Especially if you want to use her in PvE. So, you look at my first piece of gear. Problem number 1, attack instead of health. Not much I could do. I tried to get a better sword, but this is how it is. So right here, we have a whole piece of gear that's missing a very key stat. I would say if you're going to sacrifice something, it can actually be speed, especially if you're running with a way to manipulate combat readiness like Ruzid, Oxlots, Tamarine, Requiem Roar. These are all units you can use to overcome a speed deficit on a very hard-hitting unit. So if you had to sacrifice something, especially on her, I mean, speed would be better than health, because everything happens for her off of health, but speed, you can find ways around it. As I said before, there is no health buffer. There is health imprints, but not an actual health buff. Take a look at the helm, same story, right? There's no speed on this, there's no health. Health being the critical one. Like, in my opinion, this would be unusable, all right? The reason why I went with it is for this right here. Now, we're going to talk about this. You're like, Val, this only has one of the key stats you mentioned, and you're right. The thing is, the key stat, it just has a poop ton of it. Crit chance is so critical that you get in substats. It's one of those where I highly recommend you always get crit chance in substats. The reason why is that frees this up for either more HP, more crit damage, more attack. Why is that important? And let's use my Fallen Cecilia as an example. Okay, here you take a look at this. You can see from a destruction set, you get 40% crit damage, right? You can see from here, this was a 13% piece, which gave it 65%. So just in the set bonus and going with a necklace, we have 105% more crit damage. Just for set and necklace. That doesn't include any additional crit damage that you get on your gear. And because I'm recommending every piece should have crit damage, that is going to add up to a significant amount of crit damage. That is how powerful having all your crit chance in substats is. Look at it from an attack perspective. Look at it from an HP perspective. Like if you have an attack scaling unit, but you need that unit to crit and you go with this, you're missing out on 60% attack because you had to go with the crit chance necklace to get to 100%. Think about if you didn't have to do that and you could just slot that attack. That's 60% more attack. That is how powerful getting all your crit chance and substats is. And I will preach this till the day I die. Always do your best to avoid a crit chance necklace. Now, there is a point where it's like, okay, Val, you have 280 crit damage. I think you could have lost the 65 here, right? I don't think so. Me personally, I don't think so. But let's say my crit damage substats were better. Like, let's say, this actually had crit damage on it, right? Then, it only dropped me down, like, say, 250, 260. Then I can see, all right, you know what? To get your 100% chance crit, and you're already, you're going to have 260, 270 crit damage, go ahead. Go with it, man. Here's the thing about crit damage. You can't use it if you don't crit. Bottom line. It's worthless if you do not crit. You have to crit to use a destruction set. If you don't crit, you can't use it. I said that many times because you have to accept that. Every time you don't crit, it's wasted, right? Well, my gear is wasted. That's why it upsets me to see this, because there are wasted attacks. There are times when you need it to be clutch, and it will not be clutch. Okay? So you take a look at this. Here, we hit crit damage, we hit health, but guess what? No crit chance was affecting our crit. Take a look at this. We got crit chance, we got health, we didn't get speed. Got closer. This is good. This is a good piece. Of course, you say, well, there's flat health. Well, guess what? She can use flat health. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. What's the end? It's just no speed, no crit damage, right? We would trade these two out, or even effect resistance for more crit damage over speed, because we want her to hit hard. So ideally, we would trade health out for speed. We trade effect resistance out for more crit damage. But as you can see, that's a key difference. There's two pieces, absolutely no crit damage. Imagine what this now. This would be over 300 if we could do that. This would be 100 if we could get those pieces that don't have any crit chance at all. Take a look at the ring. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. All we got is our health and a little teeny bit of speed. Terrible. Terrible. But that's how hard it is to get good gear with the stats you need. You see the pattern that's forming. When you're looking for gear, and I know it means a lot of farming, but when you're looking for gear, there's a reason you look for these stats on gear. When someone looks at this and says, this is a terrible piece, that is why. It doesn't have the stats this unit needs. Now, someone else can look at this and go, wow, this would be great on my Tamarine, or this would be great on my Diane, or whoever the heck they may have. But for this particular unit, it's terrible because you need 4 key stats. This has one of them, and the second one it has, I don't even know if I would count it, because 2 is not a great piece. But I had to make concessions in order to get this video out. Okay. Now, here's the tricky slot. Here's the tricky slot. Okay. Now, you look at this one. We've got our health. We've got our crit chance. We don't have anything else. Here's the thing with this. When you build a unit like this and you're kind of breaking the mold, you're not going with the traditional build, this boot slot is hard to judge because you're using this for crit damage, right? Because you want her to hit hard. So that means less HP in her case. You're using this for HP because you're giving up this one and you're trying to make up the HP to make it matter. But then they're slow. Now, here's the thing. If you don't have good combat readiness manipulation, you don't have anyone who's ready for prime time, You're going to have to sacrifice this slot for speed. If you do that, okay, you need to get strong health rolls. Like, imagine, look at her HP, okay? Imagine if I had went speed. And look at this, with no health. Look at this, no health. I would be hurt, severely gimping myself. So being aware of where you need to be stat-wise and what sacrifices you need to make, and looking at the team you need to use her with are key in when you're building a unit. You don't just slap on whatever gear because you think it has synergy. You have to think about your stats, the team you're going to be running with it, how you can supplement the team's ability that gives you a little bit more flexibility with actually building your unit. It's just not that simple as saying it's attack unit, attack crit, okay? Who are you running it with? What abilities do they have? How is it going to enhance the gear that you have? In my case, I have a lot of combat readiness manipulators, so being able to sacrifice the boots to go for more HP so I don't get my damage was the right choice to make. However, in an ideal world, like in just totally awesome, every single piece here would have rolled at least 15% health, which is like one really good roll. 2 if you have to push it, with the rest going into like crit chance or crit damage, however it wants to break it up, either 2 and 1 or 1 and 3, however, but those are, you want that on every piece. Because if you look, let's just say 85 piece, I think health or HP or crit chance roll minimum is like 6. So you take 6 times 6, that's 36 crit chance, right? That's assuming you get crappy rolls, nothing rolls into it. It matters. It's cumulative. It's important that you get it on every piece because every point matters. So that's the gear. Now, the artifact is really key for her because you want to maximize her damage and you want to be able to kind of mitigate the fact that she's so slow. So how do you get her as a knight to generate more DPS? Because knights really don't have a true, this is a DPS increase type of artifact. So you had to think, how do I increase her DPS while also maximizing her taunt ability? And this is hands down a no-brainer. Elbrus Ritual Sword is the best thing. Because remember, your Cecilia, when built this way, is all about damage. She's going to hit harder than the other team expects her to hit. Now, if you combine that with the fact that she can taunt them and lock them down, in addition to the fact that she does decent damage, then you have a really big threat on your hand. And also, who is tanky by default, because to make her damaging, she has to have a lot of HP. Here's the great thing about an HP scaling unit and why I'm not really concerned with defense. If you have a defense unit and they come in with like a Bellona Vildred or any armor breaker and any cleaver, doesn't matter to her. Does it? If you have a defense scaling unit or you build high defense, guess what? One armor break and all that is really for naught. But they can't take away your HP. There's no HP reduction unit. You're still going to have the same amount of HP. So the thicker you can be in health, the better, right? Because there's nothing they can do to mitigate that other than try to do more damage to you. So that's why I believe this was the right choice. I think if you are building her this way, it's really the only choice in my mind as far as that goes. Now, when you build her like this, where do you use her? Where in the world could you use a Fallen Cecilia this slow? Right now, I am using her on GW offense as well as GW defense. I use her on arena offense every now and then she's a mainstay on my arena defense team because no one expects her to hit hard. In arena, I did test her initially. She does about, with a non-Armin team, anywhere from 7 to 10k, depending on who you're attacking. AoE damage on S3. Her S1 hits anywhere from 3 to roughly 7k again, depending on who you're hitting. And also it taunts. You can see that in some of the intro video that we had there. But, I mean, it's really good. No one expects it. There are times I would really like to see how arena matches play out and how she helps the team. But that's where I use her. It's very hard to use her in any hunts due to her slow speed because typically everyone wants to auto hunt. But auto doesn't really work out when you have a unit that's tailor built for something because you need, your combat readiness to be up. You need her to be pushed. And they could push at the wrong time and be on cooldown. And then she just sits there and she constantly gets lapped. So you really need to use her in situations where you have control, and GW is one of the best examples of a place to use her on offense. Arena is not so much because it's better to cleave is what it comes down to. I did try her AoE as cleave, but those numbers I gave you are non-Armin. With Armin, it doesn't hit for enough to really be effective. It is nice, though. You are protected when their Aura goes, when their Dizzy goes, because you have skill nullifier, but really, in the end, you lose because now your skill nullifier has been taken away. The ball goes, the Aura goes, or whoever their DPS unit goes, their villager goes, and you're dead because your nullifier's already been absorbed. However, in a 3v3 situation like Guild Wars, she is absolutely a lot more effective there. There's less RNG, there's less units for you to have to deal with, which makes her quite powerful there in this particular build. If you want to build her standard, or you want to use her just normally, have her sent on arena defense, ditch everything I've said, go defense HP, and then go HP defense for your slots. And Elbrus Ritual Sword will still be fine. You will want to max skill 1 and 2 as opposed to 3. You can work on that later if you just want to go standard, sit on arena, be tanky, stop people from cleaving you. Well, that's going to do it for this video. If I missed something, or you're like, Val, you are a total mad lad for building her like this, I love you. Feel free to leave that in the comments below. As always, thank you all for watching, and all you dudes and dudettes out there, stay frosty.